Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Diamond miner Trans Hex's acquisition of the Namaqualand mines from diamond giant De Beers provides the miner with marine upside potential. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer is in the studio to tell us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Can you tell us a bit more about this 225 million rand acquisition?
It's a very interesting deal. You know, De Beers have been trying to sell their Namaqualand assets for some time. They put them on the market a few years ago and then pulled them back when there was a downturn in the global economy. Now they're back on, and the preferred bidder is Trans Hex. They are the front line to get these assets. But I think 40 people bid for these. But a lot of the companies that I spoke to said they turned away because when they saw the rehabilitation obligations were so high, they decided that De Beers should give them the asset free because they'd have to spend so much on restoring, you know, the environment. But Trans Hex has been working for about 40 years as a near neighbor of De Beers in that area, and they therefore are the most credible company to take over. They know what is required, but they have an ace up their sleeve. And I think that's why it will work for Trans Hex, whereas it hasn't worked for De Beers. You know, it's been a loss maker. So now you see them coming in, and you say, well, why are you taking on this big commitment? You know, you've got the rehabilitation costs. De Beers hasn't made a go of it. How are you going to make a go of it? And that's when they pull the ace from their sleeve, because what the situation there is on land. You've got several veins, about 10 to 15 meters wide, diamond-bearing veins. But these veins go into the sea. So they cross the beach and they go into the sea. And for some time now, De Beers has come pretty close to the sea, but they've had to be stopped, normally by the DMR, because the shallow water concession belongs to Trans Hex already. So they've had that concession. The shallow water marine concession has been theirs for a long time. So this has been stunting De Beers' opportunity. Now they say if they get this, they'll start with the on-land terrestrial synergies. And they believe that those veins are pretty rich. But then continue right into the sea because that's their concession. Should, you know, environmentalists stop them from going over the beach area, they will still be able to do very well, you know, continuing with that vein. And, you know, story on the street is that, you know, the Oppenheimers made a lot of money out of these rich veins. You know, this is not an insignificant lot of diamonds. So they're talking about, you know, a resource of about 10 million carats with 1.9 million, I think, that are exploitable and can be turned to account. But they are looking forward, because this has always been their great aspiration, to actually make sure that they can turn their long-standing shallow marine water concessions to account, and this gives them the opportunity.
Now, the mining firm has a code-compliant diamond resource of 10 million carats in Angola. What are the plans for this area?
Yeah, well, you know, they've burnt their fingers in Angola. I mean, really, they've burnt shareholders' funds. You know, tens of millions of rands have been burnt in Angola by Trans Hex. And it's just the nature of Angola. It's not an easy place to go into. And the first two projects that they've had there are stillborn. And their partners in Angola said, look, they want to exit, they want them to exit, or they want to exit. So there are three projects there. Two of them they will exit from, but it's the third that they're confident in, and that's the Luana project, where they have been exploring, but they're already talking about, I think, 42,000 carats coming out of this year, which is a conservative number, a small number. So their big challenge in Angola now is to grow this footprint, and they've got an agreement with their partners there, because I think they're a third owner of this, that everybody will put capital investment into the growth in proportion to their shareholding. And I think that the Angolan partners have now got to come to the party with capital. They want to try and assist them in raising this within the Angolan space, in the Angolan banks. And they seem as confident that something can be done. It's probably not going to be an equity transaction. It will be a debt transaction, and they're looking more confident of that area. They're very happy to exit, their first two projects there, but they're wanting to push ahead with the third one where they see potential.
Now, the South African business underperformed this year. How will the Namaqualand acquisition assist in creating more business for South Africa?
Yeah, I nearly fell over with shock when they said to me the South African operations have only got 6 more years of life. I thought these were still going to go on, and they said, no, well, that's why we've been looking in Angola, and that's why we want Namaqualand, because Namaqualand can extend us and give us a bit of an infinite horizon. And so this deal is crucial for them. It's got to go through a lot of hoops, the competitions authorities and the Department of Mineral Resources. But I reckon they're very close to getting this deal. I mean, they have been announced as the buyer of this. It's just subject to these conditions precedent. Normally, it should be a formality to go through these. And, although they made a 45 million rand loss, which of course has upset the shareholders because they sort of had perennial problems, this company. Their biggest shareholder, Jan Rupert, pulled out, and so, but if they can get Namaqualand, I think that they may just surprise on the upside. And I don't think they want to be gung-ho about that at the moment, because they don't want to, sort of hype up the opportunity. But to me, it looks like a very good opportunity. That there's probably a good investment possibility here, where if you get these shares while they're down, they could be yielding in 18 to 24 months, because it seems as though this deal will go through. And if it does, they've got that marine upside, which De Beers weren't allowed to exploit because they were holding the trump card there. They've got the concessions to the shallow water sea area.
Now, on that note, what do you think the future holds for this company?
Look, I'm cautiously optimistic about Trans Hex. They have been purveyors of bad news for long enough. I think that I can see an undercurrent of optimism and a suggestion that, look, they don't want to speak. They want to let the numbers speak, in 18 to 24 months. And you can see that backing them in this transaction, because they're only going to take 50%. They've got a vehicle to purchase Namaqualand, Emerald Panther, and they will only hold 50% of those shares, and that Emerald Panther will be the owner of the Namaqualand. The other 50%, is going to be held by some shrewd asset managers. I don't think they would have come in there without doing their homework quite carefully. And they will also manage the black economic empowerment, the historically disadvantaged South African component, as well as the community component, because the community will own 5% of this. So it'll be a 50-50 joint venture, 50% clearly from Trans Hex, and they've got cash. This is a long-standing company. They've been mining there for 40 years as sort of De Beers' near neighbor. And so they've got cash in the bank, and even though they recorded a loss, they managed to increase their cash position by 22 million to well over, I think, 250 million in cash. So they are able to use their own cash to come in on this deal, but because they have 50% partner here, they've got other people coming in, which will lower their risk, ease the financial burden. And although they could use that cash, I think they want to, the moment the competent persons report is out, that means you get an independent person to come in and to check that what De Beers is saying is correct. The moment that announcement comes out, that there are these a resource of 10 million carats, that will trigger a sort of a fundraising activity to raise capital for this. So I think they could raise debt, to pay for their 50%.
So it's just a waiting game.
It's a waiting game, and I think it's not on the far horizon that we should see better numbers coming out of Trans Hex, which is an embattled company with quite a perennial set of problems in the past.
Well, thank you very much for your insight, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insights into what's happening in the mining world.